Welcome in to another Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined by a very special guest. No, do not adjust your computer. It is not Chris Emerson. It is Charlie Walton from Zone Coverage. Charlie, how we doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, we love to have you on. You're our favorite guest. I would say our favorite guest. Yeah.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah, we love talking Wolves with you. And before we get going, tell everyone where they can find you on social media and also your writing as well.
Yeah, so Twitter, it's Charlie Walton MN. Same thing on Instagram, and then I write for Zone Coverage. So that's pretty basic. That's pretty much it.
Absolutely, yeah. So check it out. We'll link it in the description as well. So first, let's start with it. You were at Game 4. What was the atmosphere like at Target Center?
It was great, man. The crowds have been incredible all playoff long, but I've never heard the crowd quite that oiled up. Chris Finch always likes, he'd like to call the crowds oiled up when it was a late tip off, and I always like to say that too. It's like from the jump, they were ready to go. The whiteout, super cool environment. It always is, and it's in Game 3, it was really their sixth man. Wolves fans have really had they always for this entire season and last year have really just brought it, and it's an enjoyable atmosphere. It's really tough to play in, for the visiting team, but yeah, it was great, man.
Right. And I've always felt that you just got to give Wolves fans something to chew on, right? Like for years we've been awful and people are like, oh, it's bad attendance, no one's going to go to the games. But let's be honest, no one, even the best NBA fan, doesn't want to watch Ryan Gomes and Sebastian Telfair. They just don't want to watch that. And you can't blame them. Except for us who are sickos here. Let's get into Julius Randle. So he's been up and down this series. Last night, definitely a down. So games 1 and 2, he went 3 for 18, 0 for 3 from 3, 11 points, 9 turnovers. Game 1 and 3, 18 for 28, 7 for 3 from 3, 52 points and 5 turnovers. Are the Thunder doing anything different on Randle in the games where he's not playing well, or is this all on Randle, do you think?
Yeah, I think their defensive game plan against him has really kind of remained relatively the same. They've got a ton of really good defenders, and it's tough for Julius, especially when he's posting up. I think you have to post him up strategically against the Thunder. That is for really anybody on the Wolves, too. It's when he posts up around the elbows or at the free throw line, it allows OKC to just float around and then collapse enough to where they could still get out on shooters, and that takes away Randle's passing. So when he's posted up on the baseline, that's generally where he's gotten more production in this series while he's posting up. And I rewatched Game 3, and I thought he just hit a lot. He hit a lot of the tough shots, and he didn't hit them in the first half last night. And then in the second half, he only had 3 attempts. And, he said post-game that he was a spectator, right? And we've heard Chris Finch say, I think it was after Game 2, that it was on him that Randle wasn't as much of a presence, and he's got to get him more involved. But certainly, you need Julius to be when they're loading up on Ant like they do. You need Julius to at least produce those open threes that he's so good at, and it's tough for him to score consistently as it is for anybody against Oklahoma. But I certainly did. It was like you can't. He just the 3 attempts, and then it was also zero assists in the second half, and that combination added on to everything the Wolves did so poorly last night. Really, just it was not a good recipe.
Right, and Randle really does need to turn it around if this team's going to do anything, mount a comeback. Because, and I mentioned this in past podcasts, but I want to get your take on it. Randle and Ant and all these players, they're going to be judged on what they do in this series. Now, because that was a big thing on Cat, where Cat played decently through the first 2 rounds, and then the final round, the Western Conference Finals last year, he was very non-existent. So I feel like fans are going to judge Randle on how he plays against the Thunder, and then, Lord willing, the finals as well.
Yeah, and it's a shame because he's just been tremendous since March, like we talked about the last time I was on. And I also think too, it's with these playoffs, like you can have a series where a player just has a bad matchup, and it's not fun to talk about those type of things. And it's not like, well, okay, there's ways to get around a bad matchup, But I always think back to like D'Lo in against Memphis. He played horrible in that series, or just he really wasn't the same player. But he, like Delon Brooks was taking turns at him, and it was tough for him to just find a matchup that he could exploit. And it's like when you're in the playoffs and you're playing the same team upwards of 7 times, you can have those matchups. And so I mean, you're right. And I mean, like at the end of the day, the playoffs are where players are going to create legacies. And I think OKC is just kind of last year's Boston Celtics, where they were just kind of on the back burner. And it's like, this is the team that you're going to probably have to get through. And there was some level of, of skepticism, right? They were a younger team and they went to 7 games against Denver, but it's like that defense is tremendous and they are severely mucking things up for Ant and Julius. At least they did so last night. So I can understand how, fans might think that, but I do at the same time think that like this is the best team and the best defensive team in the league for a reason. And, especially Julius, you have to give him his flowers for how well he's played this postseason.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For the first 2 rounds, he's been fantastic. And it has to be remembered, we wouldn't be here without Julius at this point. But I will say the contrast, Shea, Chet, and Jalen last night scored 95 points on 50% shooting. Meanwhile, Ant and Randle went 6 for 20 on 1 for 10 from 3. So I'm sorry, I don't care how great the bench did. You're not going to win many games when your top 2 guys, A, are only taking 20 shots, and B, only hitting a few of them.
Yeah, it was, it's Thunder are really tough to defend, I think, from the Wolves lens, because it's like ever since they brought in Elston Turner, really a couple years ago, it's like their defensive game plan with Gobert is we don't want to give up shots at the rim and we don't want to give up threes. If you want to settle for those mid ranges, that's great. That's mathematically the worst shot that you guys can take, but it's not for the Thunder. SGA, the fouls are one thing, but like we were talking beforehand, he's a shot maker, especially in the mid range. And when he's got his game going like he did last night, and Jalen Williams, and then Chet Holmgren is kind of that. He's roaming and he's hitting open threes. It's like you mentioned, you need more star power. You need more star punch to go back and forth. And at the end of the day, though, I mean, they only lost by 2. And I remember, DiVincenzo said post game, right? That's reason to be optimistic. So if you look at it from that lens, right? They all the bad things they did, including Ant and Julius, really being relative non-factors offensively. You only lost by 2. But then I think that's at the same time, like you mentioned with the defense, it's like, for as bad as they played, you were only 2 points away from this being a 2-2 series. And, ultimately, if you got a little bit more from Ant or Julius, it'd be a 2-2 series right now.
A lot of people ask me, what is the best thing you can do to support the channel? And today the answer is check out our sponsor, 612 Tees. They make really cool Minnesota Timberwolves shirts. They got everything from Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, Anthony Edwards. Basically what I'm saying is you are going to look cool wearing these shirts. And we'll take a look at some of them right now. This is the one that I got, the Dante DiVincenzo head with his autograph. Love that one. I also love this one as well, the 1-800 Reid. And Cole is his name, great local company. He's always coming up with new shirts. So if you're looking at this or listening and say, I need a new Wolves shirt, I need something for my wardrobe to wear to maybe the watch party, or even just walking around town, walking around Minneapolis, check them out. 612 Tees. The link is in the description, and use the promo code RUN30. That's RUN30 at checkout to get 30% off your first purchase. That's RUN30 at checkout. Thanks so much to 612 Tees for sponsoring today's episode, and let's get back into it. Right. The only thing that I worry about is, particularly with how good this OKC team is the adage of that role players play better at home. And it feels like we let one get away, particularly with how good our role players were playing tonight. I mean, the bench, 12 for 20 from 3, 22 for 33. They outscored the starters, which I would bet that hasn't happened the entire season. They scored 64 points. The starters scored 62. I mean, when you get 64 points from your bench it just feels like against a good team, you should win that game.
Yeah, and I think that's what I wrote about after the game last night too. Is it's like you need this type of performance to translate. Obviously, if you're going to force a game 6, and there's the first 2 games, Nikhil, Naz, and Julius combined to shoot 30%. Nikhil had 17 points in that game too, but overall they just didn't have that punch. Both sides of the ball, Dante and Naz struggled, with foul trouble, and the splits too. It's in at home, DiVincenzo in the playoffs, they played 7 games at home, and then on the road. He's shooting 39% at home in the playoffs, and then from 3, and then on the road, 23%. Wow. And then Nikhil, 3-point percentage in the playoffs at home, 48%, and then on the road, 28%. And then for Naz, it's 42% at home, 35 or 36% on the road.
See, that's what worries me.
And it's not just those 2 games. It's all 7 of the games that they played on the road. So it's like, yes, obviously the cliche is the bench players are going to play better at home, and naturally your offense isn't going to be quite as good on the road. But if OKC, it feels inevitable in how they score, in SGA's getting to the line, in their defense, in those runs that they can put together in the third quarter. And if Chris Finch, he likes to boast that he's got 8 starters, which he does, but if 3 of them essentially don't show up offensively, it's tough to beat a team that's inevitably great like Oklahoma.
Right. And as much as we love him, I know that Coach Finch says that we have 8 starters, but I don't know if Mike Conley at this point in his career is a starting level point guard. I don't think he is. Maybe defensively it is, but as just a fluid ball handler and I guess threat to score, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's got it anymore. This has got to be close to the end for Mike Conley.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and that's also where it can be frustrating because he's been incredibly important to everything the Wolves have done on both sides of the ball in this series, especially. And it's like to rely that heavily on a 37-year-old whose better days are behind him. It's he shouldn't have that type. You shouldn't have to rely that hard on him. But if you're Chris Finch, you can't. It's like I rewatch all these games and I'll focus on him defensively, and he's making all these small little plays. He did a ton of them in Game 3, where it's like there's one possession where Isaiah Hartenstein was catching an inbound pass, and Mike Conley went to go for to poke the ball free, but then he gave himself enough time to recover to go back on his guy in the 3-point line, and it's like those are the plays where not a lot of guys on the Wolves can make them, where it's like you can channel your passion for the game and your energy in an intelligent way. And that's why it's like Mike Conley, like you said, he might not be a starting level player anymore, but his impact certainly is,
Yeah. And he's definitely a statistical darling. I think it's shown that he's been one of the most efficient players for the Wolves. And I'm sure that Coach Finch is looking at the analytics and saying, I can't bench Mike Conley, nor am I saying they should bench Mike Conley. Right. I'm just saying in the future, we're going to need a starting point guard. And obviously we went for that with Dillingham. It hasn't worked out so far. Some of that's the fault of the coaching staff not giving him enough look. Some of that's him not playing as well, but we got to figure something out, particularly against this OKC team. If we want to look at this series, I mean, 23 turnovers last night. We have trouble with Oklahoma City. Now, I know they are a good defensive team turning you over, but this season, in the regular season, we had a season high 23 turnovers actually on New Year's Eve, and then we had 23 turnovers last night. Now the flip side is we were in this game even though we had 23 turnovers and gave up 19 offensive rebounds, but I guarantee you in OKC, if that happens again, we lose by 20 at least.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at earlier. Is it's like Dante DiVincenzo mentioned post game that it's like you hate to say that you only lost by 2 points, but he said that's where the hope comes from. Is you committed 23 turnovers, you allowed 19 offensive rebounds, and you were right there with them all night on a night where OKC's offense really I thought was able to generate a lot of pretty good looks, and they hit a ton of great shots, as did the Wolves. But I think you're right. In the Wolves like to play on the road. Jaden McDaniels prefers to play on the road, but in Oklahoma, I mean, that crowd is just ridiculous. And like the mistakes are just accentuated or are just brought more to the light on the road, like you mentioned. And it's tough. Just like I said, like the pill is so hard to swallow because it's like, while yes, there is reason for hope.
Right.
You're 2 points away from this being a 2-2 series, and they lost the possession game. And that's the biggest problem is you lost the possession game by 2. or the possession battle by 2, and you lost the game by 2. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like you mentioned, the bench, the starters, it's like they all night long were making those self-inflicted wounds, and it's like the Wolves know it. Chris Finch knows it. The fans know it. The Thunder know it. Like that is where they make their bread and butter. I think they lost like 3 games in the regular season when they forced their opponent into 20 turnovers, which they did a ton. And it's
Mhm.
like like I said, they're inevitably great and they're undeniably great. And when you're committing all those unforced errors and those self-inflicted wounds, it's really tough to win.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. The Thunder had 11 more shots
Yeah.
than the Timberwolves, 95 to 84. And you're not going to win many games when the other team gets 11 more opportunities than you. And it's part of it with the rebounding. I mean, 19 offensive rebounds, but the Wolves also had 19 offensive
Yeah.
rebounds as well. But it's just, you would think the Wolves would have an advantage in offensive rebounds. And to be honest, that was the one thing Randle was actually doing okay was offensive rebounding, I thought. And Rudy had a bunch as well. Just wasn't enough last night. And I want to ask you this, just kind of a question I thought of. Anthony Edwards after the game, it always seems like after big games, he doesn't get too bothered. He doesn't get too high, too low.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's a good thing? Or would you rather have your superstar kind of be bothered by, I didn't play well, or I didn't get up enough shots? Like,
Yeah.
do you think his demeanor fits this team well? Or would you rather see him more annoyed by it?
Yeah, I think he gets really pissed when he doesn't play well. I just don't think he really leads on as much. He did in December, which last night's game kind of reminded me of that offensively when he said he got so upset, or he was not so upset, but he was not having fun playing the game because of all the double teams he was seeing. It's like that was kind of like he doesn't like to, or he doesn't frequently show that emotion always. It's like I still think it does bother him, and he responds well to down performances. And he will come out like he after game 1, him and Chris Hines, the assistant coach, were up until 3 a.m. watching film. I mean, the dude's a competitor, and he's going to be ready for game 5. And then offensively too, last night with him, I didn't think it was like a terribly bad game.
No.
I've seen discourse online about it too, and it's like he did make the right plays, like he said. It was just defensively, man. It was like he just didn't seem locked in on ball or off ball. And he's had issues off ball defense, throughout his career. But it was like he was just ball watching. He allowed a ton of offensive rebounds. He just seemed ejected from the jump. And it's like Ant has the capability to be a tremendous two-way player, right? And he is one when he locks in. But then last night, regardless of his emotions, it's like he was a non-factor defensively.
Right.
And it's like I'm not sure if maybe OKC's defense played into that. But I do get what you mean, just the emotion side of things with him. I like I said, I think it does bother him. He just might not lead on with the media.
Mm-hmm. He also said after the game that I don't feel like I struggled. He said that he didn't take enough shots to make him feel like he struggled. I mean, he went 5 for 13 from the field, which is okay for anyone else, but just not good for your franchise player. And he got a lot of heat in the media for not taking enough shots. But I agree with you. I felt like he was making the right play a lot of the times. And to his credit, the guys were knocking down, the perimeter players were knocking down the shots when he got it to them.
Right.
But it just feels like, particularly down the stretch, he's got to be a little more aggressive, almost a little too selfish, or almost got to be over selfish.
Yeah,
In a way.
my only pushback with that is it's like there's only so much that you can do when you've got Lou Dort picking you up at the half court line and they're blitzing you with 3 really good defenders. Like, and when he attacks inside, the paint completely collapses. So it's like I thought OKC's game plan, particularly last night, was like, we're not going to let Ant beat us. And they were living, and that's kind of been their defensive identity throughout the years. Like, we're not going to let the star player beat us. We're going to load up on them, but they're so good to rotate out. I thought Ant, like we mentioned, he made the right plays. So yes, like it's great when he gets selfish and he's still playing efficient. Like he can have those little boomlets of 20 points in a quarter, but it's like when he doesn't have it and he just becomes that selfish player who's shot chucking, we know how bad that is and how detrimental that is to the
Right.
offense. So I don't think that would have been like the solution last night. It was like there's only so much you can ask, of him to do when he's getting defended like he did last night.
Right, and I think it's interesting you mentioned the defensive side of the ball, which not a lot of people are talking about right now. I feel like Anthony Edwards, he's a great two-way player, like you said, when he wants to be, but it almost gets overshadowed a little bit because a lot of times when you see Ant defensive highlights, it's like the block against Indiana, or it's this crazy rip down block, or it's that steal on the perimeter against SGA where he goes for a dunk. And yes, those are great. Those are possessions that, I mean, the Indiana game, it won us the game, stuff like that. But it's just the little things. It's almost the opposite of Rudy Gobert, where Rudy usually ends up on a highlight reel because he got dunked on or he got pulverized, and it's the defensive player of the year getting pulverized by a dunk. But Rudy does the little things that you don't really see in the box score. But I feel like Ant is a little more of a flashy two-way player, where the opposite there is Rudy, where he's just consistent all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and there are games. Bob Meyer said it, I think, ahead of game one, and I think he was right on. There are games where Ant is he can disappear on both sides of the ball, and that's probably that's always a step. He's 23, right? And that's why it's just so tough to criticize him as hard as we are. And it's a good problem to have if you're Ant, because it just shows you how good you are and how much pressure. Pressure is a good thing, but that's probably where it's like that next stage of his growth. Obviously, is probably just consistency on both sides of the ball. But I'm with you though. Defensively, it's like, I thought game 3, he was really locked in from the jump.
Yeah.
I thought he was flying around. He was, that early dunk, I think, really energized him. And I do wonder too, Chris, or Gabe, if it's his offense is connected with the defense, right? And it's like, that's not that you don't want that to happen. You don't want, if your offense isn't going, you don't want your defense to suffer from it. And the Wolves have had issues with that. Chris Finch has talked about it. So I do wonder last night if maybe that played into it. That absolutely can't happen, especially, in the Western Conference Finals when you're in a pivotal game 4 and you can go up. You could tie the series at 2-2, or you can go down 3-1.
So do you feel, is there any, and there may be nothing to this, but like I mentioned, Julius Randle said that he just felt like he was out there spectating. Yeah. Do you think there's anything to Ants feeding off the energy of like the top players around him, maybe Julius Randle, and Randle's not giving it 110, then maybe it's not even consciously, maybe subconsciously, like, I can slack off a little bit too, and we're going to be fine. There may be nothing to that. I was just wondering what you thought.
Yeah, I think Ant's the beacon of all the energy that the Wolves really create. Mike Conley too, like that block against Jalen Williams last night. That really kind of juiced the team up. But I'm not sure if Ant. It's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, maybe like, Julius has had issues in the past where if like his shots aren't going in, then the rest of his, he's not the same player. But I don't really think that's like an issue, and a worrisome issue. I think last night with Ant, he couldn't get anything going offensively, and then I'm not sure what was up defensively. Like we said, it's happened before. It absolutely can't happen again tomorrow.
Right, for sure. And I think a lot of the game plan, particularly for me, because I mentioned Shea, Chet, and Jalen scored like 95 points last night, almost 100 points from those 3 guys. I feel like if you can particularly if you can limit Shea a little bit and then make Jalen Williams. I'm not going to say that Jalen Williams is unproven, because he's proving himself right now in the playoffs. But if you can put a little more pressure on him and Chet, I feel like that is a better defensive strategy than just letting Jalen Williams cook you, because I don't know. I don't have the stats with me, but I would love to see what he's shooting against guys like Dante DiVincenzo, because he was cooking them every time down the court.
Yeah, and I think it's tough too, because I believe like the Wolves have played pretty solid isolation defense against Jalen Williams, against SGA, right, when they're not fouling. they're hitting really tough shots.
They
And
are.
my biggest gripe, I guess, with the team wide defense last night is I thought OKC just was able to create open threes with more ease than they were in game 3. And I looked it up. They created 23 wide open threes last night, which is when the defender is 6 or more feet away. That's the same amount they had in game 3 though, and they only made 2 more. So it's like it just felt different. It just felt like they were able to, like, maybe whether it was Ant going under a screen when he shouldn't have, or if it was the Wolves sitting too hard in the gaps, and then SGA, it was like one pass away was an open 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Thunder didn't hit those shots at game 3. They did in game 4. So that was probably my biggest just annoyance, I guess, last night, at Target Center regarding the defense.
Right. And I know you were at Target Center and you weren't watching the game feed, but are you aware that Shea and Nickeil Alexander are cousins? Did you know that?
I am. Yeah. Yep. I am aware of that. I've heard it a couple times.
Like, how many times are we just going to drill that into everyone's heads? It's crazy. I mean, I think Doris.
It's a cool story. It's good. It's good PR.
Yeah, but it's like, come on, we know this by now. Particularly, and I get it. I get if they do it like in a regular season game, where it's people are tuning in like, what's going on with the Wolves and Thunder? I follow the Atlanta Hawks and I don't know what's going on with this team. But it's the Western Conference Finals and it's game 4. We've had 4 games of, did you know they're cousins? It's cousin on cousin right now. It's like,
I kind of feel bad for Nickeil when he checks in. It's like, it just feels like, every time he's defending Shea, it's like, that's SGA's cousin. And it's like, Nickeil's his own person, right? Like, let's remember this. But
it was interesting in the post-game presser. He said, of course they're trying to bait him into, it's great playing my cousin. But like they asked him, will you go back and reminisce about guarding Shea and when you look back at this? And he said, only if we win. So I love that answer from him. By the way, Nickeil, I'm sure you watch a lot of post-game presser.
Yeah.
The best post-game interviewer
100%.
I may have ever seen.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get it a lot because a lot of times he's not the main focus of the game.
Yeah.
But he breaks down if you want to know what happened in that game, other than Coach Finch, go to Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
I think Nickeil does a better job than Chris because he's just.
I agree.
I love listening to his post-game pressers. He said after game 1, he mentioned how it's like the Wolves created, like they got up to that the 8-0 start, or maybe it was game 2, and he was like, we created those shots, and maybe those shots were bullshit shots. 3 bad shots, but they all went in. Whereas Oklahoma created 4 great shots and they missed them. And he was talking about over the course of a game, that's going to translate into Oklahoma having a better defense than the Wolves. And it did, right? He talked about that post game. I'm like, he's super intelligent. He knows the nuances of the game. He's just so much fun to listen to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He could be the new Richard Jefferson. Going forward, he could absolutely be that.
He would be a great TV host.
I think some people get into the media and they're just kind of coasting off their name.
Yeah.
Of course I want to know what Charles Barkley has to say or what Jack has to say, but I think the real analysts, I think he would be one of them. He's amazing.
I'm 100% with you on that because it's like I like Chris Finch said it a while ago, where like inside the NBA needs to have a disclaimer, for entertainment purposes only.
Right.
And I've thought that forever because it's a shame. As a fan, I wish that more people could be able to separate, like, hey, this person really knows what they're talking about.
Right.
And this person doesn't, even though this person played in the NBA. It's great that players and coaches are getting into this field. Like Michael Malone is doing great with ESPN.
Immediately. I was so surprised.
He's awesome. He's awesome. And it's like, I personally just enjoy that they are stepping into the space, but I just wish that we would, because like I can listen to somebody and be like, hey, like when Shaq called Rudy Gobert the worst player in the NBA, I'm like, crazy. Well, I know that's not true. And like, I think Shaq knows that's not true, but there's people who listen to Shaq, and because his name is Shaquille O'Neal and he's a Hall of Famer, they're going to listen and they're going to believe and be like, hey, maybe Shaq's right. Shaq's the best center ever, or whatever they think. Right. So I'm with you on that though. Nickeil would be tremendous.
Also, and not to get into it too much, but when you have Draymond Green talking about the Wolves, and particularly Rudy Gobert, when A, you just played the Wolves, and B, he doesn't like us. You know that. There's bias. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'm
It's
with you on that. Yeah.
disappointing. Yeah, I would personally prefer. I know it's entertainment. I know people like it, but I would like you were mentioning. I would much prefer just guys who know what they're talking about.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty simple. That's, low criteria here.
Right.
Low standard.
I don't care if it's like the fifth guy off the bench for a 22 win team. Like,
Yeah.
just give me people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Looking at game 5, I'm going to ask you two things. One, what do the Wolves need to do to bring this back to Target Center? And B, do you think they can do it or will do it?
Yeah. Well, they got to stop turning the ball over.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, we all know that. You've got to win the possession game against this team. You need the bench to show up like they did. They can't completely no show. And I wrote about that in my article last night for Zone Coverage. They can't no show again. You would like to say that Ant and Julius can Ant in particular can refine that groove, but even if not, like, you need that bench to be the DNA of the team, as the nickname goes, right? And also, too, my biggest concern really for game 5 tomorrow is how do they weather that third quarter run? I think it's going to happen again. And it really had game 3, OKC went on a little bit of a run to start the third. The Wolves bared down and it was over. And then they didn't have like a huge third quarter run last night either. Huge wins, right? And that was probably like two of the biggest reasons why, or at least last night, why the Wolves kept it close.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're going back to Oklahoma, where they went on huge runs to take a 20 or a 22 point lead in the first 2 games. You have to mitigate that. That can't happen again. I mean, they ended the first 2 games before it got to the fourth quarter. It's like you're not going to win when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then I so like the Wolves, they have their blueprint for success. I think they will force a game 6.
Okay.
I think it's over, though. I mean, I get the odds are like, 4% of the teams have come back. I just think, like I said, the Celtics are proving that they are this year, or excuse me, the Thunder are proving that they're this year's Celtics, and that they finished with 15 more wins than everybody in the West, and they are that type of team, and I think it's an interesting thing to point out is that they came out of that game 7 and they kind of use that as a springboard here. Whereas the Wolves last year came out of that game 7 against Denver, and they were not able to get back up to speed after, coming off of that euphoric win. So it's like, I think, like I said, there's just a undeniability about the Thunder. You have to win 3 straight. You have 3 chances to win 3 games. And it's just, it's tough. It's just tough to look back and be like, man, you're 2 points away from this being, it's the past of the past. The Wolves didn't do it. I know they've probably flushed it, and there's lessons to be taken. So I think they're going to force a game 7, but past that, or I mean a game 6, but I think probably OKC ends it then back in Minneapolis.
And I honestly think if the Wolves pull this off and they're able to come back and go to the NBA Finals, probably barring an injury, barring like Shea going down or Jalen Williams going down, it may be the greatest comeback in Western Conference Finals history. Like it might be if they're able to do it. And
because I think didn't the Warriors do it in like 2016 against the Thunder? I've seen that post. I think it was 2016.
Well, that's funny. The last time the Thunder were in the Western Conference Finals.
Was that it? Okay.
Yeah, it was a 3-1 comeback.
Funny. Yeah.
So who knows? But I'm kind of with you. I'm going to stay positive because, look, Wolves fans, why not stay positive about it? Why not enjoy the ride a little bit? And like you're mentioning, we could have. It felt last night's game. It felt like game 3 for the Warriors last series, where that was the one that you had to have.
Yeah,
that was the one at home for the Warriors and the Wolves. That was the one that you had to win to. I mean, for the Warriors' sake, it was so Steph Curry could come back, but for the Wolves' sake, it was to avoid having to win 3 in a row, 2 of them in one of the loudest arenas in the league, OKC. So
yeah. Those game 4s are always pivotal. It's just they didn't do it, so you got to move on from it. But
and let me ask you one more question. Just looking at the NBA as a whole, do you think the Knicks can come back?
I mean, if Cat, gives you 20 points in the fourth quarter, I think, they got a good shot. Like, but no, I think Indiana's incredible. They are incredible. Rick Carlisle has got that team playing super, super well. The offense is just a well-oiled machine. I think Indiana takes it. I think if it is Indiana Thunder in the finals, that's going to be a really, really fun matchup. And it's a bummer because I'm sure all the discourse online is going to be about how it's two small market teams, but it's like that is going to, it's defense versus offense. Who's better? I'm obviously going to root. I'm always going to root for Cat, you know. It was great to see him play as well as he did the other night. So
I could see now. Obviously, Cat is from New York, so I'm sure he's very happy there right now. But I could almost see way down in the future, Cat maybe coming back and playing like a Garnett, where he comes back and plays a couple of years or maybe 1 or 2 years just to end his career here.
Yeah,
I could see that happening. I really could.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I've thought about that too, and I'm with you. I'm like, I mean, I think if there's one team he could have chose to play for that's not the Timberwolves, it would have been the Knicks.
Oh yeah.
So that's the only thing where it's like, I think he needs his jersey retired. I mean, I know we're getting off topic here for sure, but it's like,
no, go for it.
I wrote about that when he got traded. It's like maybe he comes back for that season then and he gets his number 32 retired. I think that's got to happen. So it'd be sweet if he could come back and just finish his career here one season. I think he's probably going to finish with the Knicks, to be honest with you. But you know, it's been cool to see the Knicks fans kind of rally around him, and he's played great there, man. It's been fun to watch him.
I mean, that fourth quarter, that fourth quarter in game 3 or game 4, was it game 4?
Game 3 tonight.
Yeah. That was the best I've ever seen Cat.
Yeah.
He was aggressive. He wasn't afraid to shoot the 3. And it was interesting because the game before it, they were all like, oh, we're going to play Mitchell Robinson more. He's better defensively, which he is. But there's something about having a 7-footer who can shoot 40% from 3 and also attack the rim. I think this year he's attacked the rim better than he ever has.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really good player when Tibbs doesn't just have him spaced in the corner. Like, you know, he's a, all NBA type of player. So yeah, it's he's had his ups and downs in this postseason run. He was really dominant in the regular season. I think partly just because the East is so watered down, and it's like he just had the wind in his sails, and he kind of rode it the entire regular season. But you know, Knicks fans have had to maneuver through his ups and downs. But last night or the other night was just tremendous. So like I said, I'll always be rooting for him.
Right. And I've said this before on this podcast, but if we do get something like Indiana and OKC, the NBA is going to do everything they can to course correct next year.
Yeah,
it's going to be Celtics Lakers next year. 100%.
Yeah, right. Yep. Like the Lakers are going to get, you know, who are they going to get? They're going to get trade for Cat, and it's just going to be over.
Or Giannis or something.
Giannis, yeah.
God, the Lakers got so lucky. Anyway, hopefully the Wolves can turn it around. Let's just go as far as we can. Let's push. Let's make it as difficult.
Let me ask you, what's your final series prediction for Wolves Thunder? What do you think?
You know what? I'll go Thunder in 7.
You're gonna go Thunder in 7? All right, I like that. I'll go with you then. I'll go with you. Thunder in 7.
Yeah, Thunder in 7. Because I think, and originally I was gonna go Wolves in 7 at the very beginning, but then I was thinking about a game 7 in OKC. I don't like that at all. But if there's anyone that can do it, it would be the Wolves. Yep. So prove me wrong, Chris Finch.
Yep, there you go.
Anyway, Charlie, thanks so much for being here. Tell everyone again where they can find you on social media and your writing as well.
Yeah, Charlie Walton MN on Twitter and Instagram, and then I write for zonecoverage.com.
Absolutely, and we'll have that linked in the description of the YouTube and also Spotify and Apple as well. Charlie, thanks so much for being here. Love talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. This is always great.
Absolutely. And this is the Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and or Apple. And as always, go Wolves.